Good afternoon to everybody. I'd like to thank Colin Frankel for sponsoring the Dvar Torah for this week, Parsha Behaalotecha, and it's Le'ilu Nishmat, Maureen's mother, Rose Godelski, Mina Rezel Bat Aaron Shlomo, that her neshama should have, Aliyah Began Eden, amongst other things, in the zchut of the Divrei Torah. I'd like to combine a couple of issues. The Parsha on the one hand, it also was the passing away of Rabbi Norman Lamb, one of the presidents of Yeshiva University in America this week. He was a very, very well-known Talmid Chacham. As I said, he was one of the presidents of Yeshiva University, and also to combine it with the very, very unfortunate happenings that are in America, which of course it's not just like the world's not isolated as it was before, and these things they are a symptom of what's going on in Western society, and they ultimately affect all of us. So I'd like to begin with in Parshat Behaalotecha. We all know that in the trek towards Eretz Yisrael, from this parasha, after an initial description of the great hopes and the joy of trekking to Eretz Yisrael, suddenly things begin to unravel, and one crisis follows another crisis. And the one crisis that the Torah speaks about is that the people complain to Moshe that they're sick and tired of eating the man. They recall, this is how it is, people have got a fertile imagination. They recall that only the good meals that they had in Mitzrayim, the nice vegetables, the fish, etc. This is only like a year plus after being released from Mitzrayim by Kadosh Baruch Hu, and already though they paint this rosy picture of what the galut and the slavery was. Be that as it may, in the response, they said they're sick and tired of the man, and here Moshe Rabbeinu's reaction is one of, we would say, totally out of character. Moshe Rabbeinu has got experience with dealing with crises, and from the time that he appeared on the scene of trying to bring everyone out of Mitzrayim, and then and afterwards the Chet HaEgel. And over here he says the following words. First of all, it speaks about the action of Hashem. Vayichar af Hashem ma'od. Hashem was exceedingly angry at the people complaining of the man and saying that they remember how good it was in Mitzrayim. And the pasuk ends off, Uvainei Moshe Ra, that in the eyes of Moshe it was evil, their complaints. And then Moshe goes on in, I wouldn't say, I can't use the word a tirade on Navi Yisrael, but he says to Hashem, why did you deal with me so badly? Why do I have to bear this load of the Jewish people by myself? Did I give birth to the Jewish people? Where am I supposed to get meat to feed all these people? I can't take it anymore. And if you want me to carry on in this vein, then you know what, rather kill me. This is Moshe Rabbeinu, the man who is full of patience, who managed to save the Jewish people from destruction in the time of Chet HaEgel, who straight away went up to Har Sinai, entreated HaKadosh Baruch Hu for 40 days, and then davened another 40 days. He didn't say, well, you know what, I've had enough. I just can't take it anymore. Find yourself another nation or kill me. So what happened over here? Because they wanted, as we would say, the proverbial, they wanted a little bit of steak and chips. So is this the reason? Is this reason to complain so much to Hashem that he's dealt so badly with him? And I'd like to use a principle that, as I said, Rabbi Norman Lamb, Zecher Livracha, Zichrono Livracha, that he passed away this week. And I once saw in a book of his essays, or book of his drashot, I mean, I don't have it anymore, it was a long, long time ago, 30 years ago, called The Royal Reach, in which he once spoke about, I don't remember if it was I think it was a midrash. You can all look it up if you've got the book, or you want to go into Google. So I'm giving you the book. The book is called The Royal Reach. And he was trying to understand why, in the case of the Mabul, of the flood, why was it that the entire community, the entire generation was wiped out. The Torah tells us that the society was full of violence and robbery and theft, mamash lawlessness. But he wanted to say, could we imagine that every single person in that generation, everyone was engaged in robbery and theft, everyone was violence? And in it, as I say, I think he was quoting a midrash. He said that, the victims were also violent, but in a different way. Because the Gemara and the midrashim say that there was theft. A lot of the theft and the violence was that sometimes people stole things less than shaveh pruta, less than a couple of agurot. Of course, these little thefts of less than an agura, that like adds up, and that of course caused the shopkeepers and others, the merchants and other people, tremendous loss. But b'chol ofen, to get back to the point, the theft that even the victims and the violence that the victims were also responsible for was their exaggerated reaction to the theft of something which was less than Shavah Pruta. So there was a culture of violence from a point of view of the victims, for the perpetrators, and the way that the people who were the victims, the people who were robbed of a certain amount of money, they made out as if, let's say, a couple of cents was robbed from them, was stolen from them. They reacted to it as if $1 billion was reacted to them. So the whole culture, the whole way that people express themselves, both in the way of action or verbally, was a situation which was bespoke from beginning to end, that of violence. And this is what Moshe Rabbeinu detected over here. We can understand why people might be upset over here about going out of Egypt and having to eat man the whole time, but to sit and to cry about it, and to complain in such a way, and that they want to go back to that hell called Mitzrayim, and that they paint this rosy picture about how good it was there and how terrible it was in the Midbar, that is violence, nothing less. It's mamash, it is violent type of talk and a violent type of reaction. And this is what got Moshe Rabbeinu so upset, because it meant that in their inner world, if this is how violent they could be, if they could make a protest and start crying about that they don't have steak and chips, that means that there's something rotten inside. And this is why he said he reacted in such a grave way to the Ta'anot, the innocent Ta'anot, so to speak, of Am Yisrael. And that when one looks at the television and sees after the tragedy of the brutality of the police in America, of a person who was killed, the cruelty involved, but the reaction in which a total sense of anarchy, lawlessness, looting, 8 days, 9 days now, non-stop, millions and millions of dollars being lost, innocent shopkeepers, and Dafka blacks who Dafka need the money, for them to fall victim because of an exaggerated, no one saying not to protest, not even speaking about expressing it in absolute anger and horror, but to turn to such lawlessness, and then some of that lawlessness to be condoned by the media and others in America, is just something which is, to paraphrase a writer in South Africa, is to say, to crowd the beloved country, that once America was an icon of values, of democracy, of decency, of education, and to just witness this absolute lawlessness, which it's a very, very disturbing thing. I would just say that that violence is part of what Rabbi Lamb and what is said in connection to Parshat Noach, which I'm now adapting to Parshat Behaalotecha to understand what's going on over here in Moshe's reaction. I would say that violence in America is just a continuation of another type of violence. And as I say, I don't have to live in America to pass an opinion. I can be like make an informed opinion. But in a society where people are thrown out of restaurants because they hold the views of different types of parties, I mean, that is absolute violence, which you can see people who were Trump supporters, and I'm not now advocating Trump, but I'm saying is if people can go into a restaurant, pay for a meal, and then be thrown out by the owner of the restaurant after having paid because they hold different views to Democrats, that is a violence which then it just has to spill over in another context, which now we see the effect of that violence. So yes, what we're saying is that in Parshat Behaalotecha, it wasn't when Moshe Rabbeinu reacted in with such sorrow to the innocent, so to speak, people's crying about the proverbial steak and chips. It's yes, there can sometimes be things which are expressed in violence, but in a sort of a nice way, as if we're speaking about some sort of moral demand that we have meat instead of man. And you see it today, if I can just belabor the point. You see it even I always say that in my sermons and other drashot, we always have to look inside. Let's leave always on the outside. But even in the inside, let's look at ourselves. Sometimes there are things in the shul which are not 100%. No one's saying that the people shouldn't pass over in silence at things which have to be fixed up in the shul and corrected. But there have been, unfortunately, many a situation in when people are in shul, and because this thing didn't go exactly their way, so that's it. You don't see the people over there in the next 10 weeks at shul. They're protesting, they're resigning. That is this overreaction, this violence, which over here Moshe Rabbeinu and the Torah is telling me is like a problem. So, Be'ezrat Hashem, we shouldn't have those like problems. We should know how to protest. We should know how to say that we differ on certain issues, but to do things in such an exaggerated way, HaKadosh Baruch Hu should help us to overcome this type of netiyah, and that when we've got things, we want to say that things are wrong, that to say it in a way which is not a violent and exaggerated way. Shabbat Shalom L'Kulchem.